Assalamualaikum and have a good day to our panels, Puan Nur Suhaiza and also Dr. Tenmoli. My name is FARAH NADIA and my partner Nurul Asyiqin. We will be presenting on our research topic, which is a study on factors that affecting small and medium enterprise (SME) performances in Seremban during MCO (Movement Control Order), and supervised by our supervisor, Puan Nurul Nadia binti Abu Hassan. So, the flow of our presentation will be according to this table of content. Now, moving on to the research background. According to a study, the coronavirus or COVID-19 is an extreme acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. In Malaysia, the COVID-19 saw its first case on 25th January 2020, where it involved one Chinese nationality who had initially entered Johor from Singapore on 23rd January 2020. And due to this situation, our government had imposed the first MCO or Movement Control Order from March 18 to March 31st, 2020. This order includes the entire of Malaysia, including all religious, social, cultural activities with a ban on public events. And lastly, all businesses and company premises were closed except for supermarkets or shops selling daily necessities. For the problem statements, the first one is that the government of Malaysia had to impose MCO or Movement Control Order, which commenced in March 2020. It prohibits certain activities and it affects all businesses, especially for the small-medium enterprise. Next, the problem statement is that the Ministry of Works had stated that all work on building sites is not allowed under the MCO and must be stopped during the period. There are three research objectives that includes to identify the significant relationship between the inability to conduct sales and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. Next, to evaluate the significant relationship between the changes of consumer purchases behavior with the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. And lastly, to find the significant relationship between the debt of business owners with the suppliers and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. So, this is the conceptual framework where the dependent variables for this study is SME's performances in Seremban during MCO, while independent variables for this study includes inability to conduct sales, changes of consumer purchases behavior, and lastly, debt of business owners with suppliers. Now, based on this table, there are three objectives that I have mentioned in my previous slide. So the first one is to identify the significant relationship between the inability to conduct sales and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. The hypothesis for this objective is there is no relationship between the inability to conduct sales and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. And the next hypothesis is there is relationship between the inability to conduct sales and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. The second objective is to evaluate the significant relationship between the changes of consumer purchases behavior and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. So the first hypothesis for this objective is that there is no relationship between the changes of consumer purchases behavior and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. Next hypothesis is that there is relationship between the changes of consumer purchases behavior and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. And lastly, the objective is that to find the significant relationship between the debt of business owners with suppliers and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. The hypothesis for this objective is that there is no relationship between the debt of business owners with suppliers and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. And the next hypothesis is there is relationship between the debt of business owners with suppliers and the SME's performances in Seremban during MCO. There are 7 elements in research methodology, which the first one is research design. Our research design is quantitative method. Next is sampling technique, which is we use sample random sampling. And the SME's owners in Seremban is the unit of analysis. While for the data measurement, we use Likert scale. There are 357 respondents of SME's owners that have been used in this study for the sample. For the data collection, there are 5 parts that have been used in the research question, which is part A until part E. In the research question, part A is about demographic data of respondent, while part B is about performance of SMEs during MCO, and part D is about changes in consumer purchases behavior, and lastly, part E is about debt of business owners with the suppliers. And lastly, for the data analysis, this study is using 4 types of data analysis that includes descriptive analysis, standard deviation, Pearson correlation, and also multiple regression. That is all from me. I will pass this presentation to my partner, Nurul Asyiqin.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. I'm Nurul Asyiqin from AM2286G. Now I will explain on findings of our study. So, we have 357 respondents that come from SME business owners in Seremban. So the first finding for our study is demographic profile. Most of our respondents come from male respondent with 187 respondent, and the remaining is from female gender, which is 170 respondent with 47.6%. As shown in the table, we also have 5 category of age for the respondent, which are 25 years old and below, 26 years old until 35 years old, 36 until 45 years old, 46 until 55 years old, and 56 years old and above. So the highest respondent for the age category is come from 25 years old and below, with 123 respondent with 34.5%. For the level education, there are 5 level of education, which is no formal education, SPM, certificate or diploma, master's or bachelor degree, and also business study base. So the highest respondent come from master or bachelor degree, which is 118 respondent with 33.1%. And for the status of business, we have 4 categories, which is private limited company, closed corporation, and partnership category. Also sole proprietorship. So the lowest category for the business is closed corporation, which is 27 responded with 7.6%, and the highest is come from sole proprietorship with 145 respondent. Last but not least, for demographic profile is the monthly business revenue of the respondent, with 5 categories, with the highest category for monthly business revenue is come from 50k and below with 105 respondents with 29.4%. As shown in the table, there is objective analysis and result, also hypothesis in this main finding. So there are 3 objectives in our study. The first is to identify the significant relationship between inability to conduct sales and the SME's performance in Seremban during MCO. The analysis that we use for this objective is Pearson correlation, with the result R equal to 0.522 and P equal to 0.00, which is less than 0.05. This will affect to the hypothesis that we accepted, which is hypothesis alternative 1, which is there is relationship between inability to conduct sales and SME's performance in Seremban during MCO, and we rejected hypothesis null, which is no relationship. The next objective is to evaluate significant relationship between the changes consumer purchases behavior and the SME performance in Seremban during MCO, with the analysis that we use is Pearson correlation, and the result is R equal to 0.434 and P equal to 0.00, which is less than 0.05. This shows that the hypothesis that we accepted is hypothesis alternative 2, which have relationship between the changes consumer purchases behavior and the SME's performance, and rejected hypothesis null, which is no relationship. And the last one is to find the significant relationship between that of business owner with suppliers and the SME performance in Seremban during MCO by using analysis of Pearson correlation, and the result is R equal to 0.557 and P equal to 0.00, which is less than 0.05. And there is the hypothesis which that we accepted, which is there is relationship between the independent variable and dependent variable, as stated in hypothesis alternative 3, and rejected hypothesis null 3, which is no relationship. As business owner, they should have the strategy to improve their business performance. So the first things that recommended to the business owner is to change their mode of business. The business owner can use online business instead of physical business. Next, business owner also can manage stock taking or stock control according to their situation, especially in this COVID-19. Last but not least, business owner can get financial support from the government to improve their business performance and help them in financial. There are several things in the limitation of research, which is the first one is limited sample size. Next, lack of previous research study. Last but not least is time constraint. As a conclusion, business owners face many challenges and affected by SME performance, since there is a trend in SME performance. So business owner should apply online business mode to ease consumers to do purchases, and to reduce that, business owners must manage their stock taking and find external financial from the government. Here we can say that minimize the problems can maximize the performance. Thank you.